came home often and eventually graduated. Mothers were satisfied being able to brag to friends and relatives that her little baby had a bachelor's degree. Dads were satisfied knowing their days of subsidizing the kids may end someday. Basic studies sounded just fine. The only notable thing about Ben's college career had been joining the fraternity, Delta Kappa Beta, or DKB. In doing so, he hadn't found a purpose, but rather a niche. When a band canceled the day of one of the DKB date parties, Ben scammed some guys from the music department into putting together a power trio for the night with the promise of free liquor and introductions to sorority girls. When a shipment of crepe paper was late for decorating the homecoming float, Ben got the local stationery store to donate half their stock of streamers to his underprivileged students. Then there was the time the fraternity ran out of money during fall rush, and Ben convinced a bankrupt restaurant near campus to let him take all the opened liquor, which was written off as breakage, and convinced an amateur stripper to work the party for tips. Ben had found that with enough phone calling, enough begging, enough promising, and always with enough luck, he could pull off the impossible regularly. He learned to promise when he had no idea how to deliver, and it was usually when he was most limited by an impossible brevity of time that he was most able to fight like hell and pull it together. The important part of the fraternity for Ben, however, was that for the first time in his life, he belonged. He knew his fraternity brothers needed him, and for Ben, that was enough. At home, he was unremarkable, and generally in the way, an underachiever in the shadow of his athletic younger brother. At college, he was praised and accepted. When the phone rang that day at the DKB house, Ben expected it to be one of the guys asking if they had gotten transportation to Mardi Gras lined up for next week. East Central Louisiana University broke for the Mardi Gras holiday after class on Friday. Students received 3 days off: Lundi Gras, or Fat Monday, Mardi Gras, Fat Tuesday, and Ash Wednesday. Mardi Gras was, after all, a religious holiday. The fraternity usually piled into one vehicle and all went down to New Orleans together. But getting a big van or RV this year was not looking promising. The guys had been leaning on Ben to borrow the family van. He'd said no because he didn't want to deal with his dad if anything happened. For that matter, he didn't want to deal with his dad on any issue at all. It wasn't that his dad was abusive or cruel, not intentionally anyway. He just didn't seem to like a whole lot of what Ben did. Ben's father didn't like Mardi Gras, didn't like the fraternity, and didn't like Ben living on campus. Ben's dad thought Ben was a failure for not graduating in 4 years, like they used to do back in the 70s, even though Ben's dad never attended college himself. Ben was finished trying to impress his father. He would leave that to his younger brother. At least he still had his mom's goodwill. She believed he would set the world on fire, even if he himself didn't. Somebody at the frat house got a copy of Fortune magazine every month, and Ben flipped through it during commercials in front of the TV. A couple of weeks ago, he'd read an old article about average starting salaries of graduates from top 100 universities. It was one of those articles that made nearly everyone in the rest of the world feel like underachievers. He read about the kids who would graduate with a bachelor's degree in management, and whose starting salary would be about $45,000 per year. He read about the lengths to which corporate executives would go in order to lure the hot prospects from the top schools, including flights across the country in private business jets, weekends in Cancun, and internships with the CEO himself. Ben would be lucky to sell menswear at a department store. He knew it was time to grow up, and maybe it was time the fraternity leaned on somebody else to get things done. The guys could get their own ride to New Orleans. Ben answered the phone. "Yeah, Delta Kappa Beta." "Hi, this is Becky with the Department of General Studies. Can I please speak to Solomon B. Jones?" "This is Ben." Solomon was his first name. Only his mother called him Solomon, and only when she was angry with him. "Solomon Benjamin Jones?" "Yeah, Ben." "Okay, great, Solomon. I'm just calling to let you know the department has reviewed your credits, and you only have 1 credit hour left to be able to graduate in May.